Jerry Smith's hope does not arrive in grand gestures or triumphant moments. It lives in the quiet corners of his life, in the small attempts that go unnoticed, in the nervous laughter he uses to stitch together the gaps in his own confidence. He is not a man who announces his resilience. He simply keeps trying again and again, long after the world has offered him thousands of reasons to stop. That persistence is not loud, heroic, or cinematic. It is fragile, trembling at the edges, yet it remains. And that fragile hope is the heart of Jerry Smith. Jerry's life begins, in a sense, with a misunderstanding. He believes the world is stable, that family is eternal, that love is straightforward, that goodness is rewarded, and that doing your best is enough. These are comforting assumptions, but they rarely fit the reality around him. The universe he lives in does not care about fairness. It does not slow down for his anxieties or cushion his missteps. Rick walks through portals and dimensions as if existence is a game. Beth dreams of something bigger than the life she settled for. Morty and Summer navigate chaos with a resilience they did not choose, but learned. And Jerry, caught between fear and sincerity, tries to make sense of it all. He begins from a place of innocence, not because he is naive in a childish way, but because he still believes in structures that others have already abandoned. Marriage, tradition, stability, routine, these ideas are the scaffolding he clings to, not out of stubbornness but out of survival. Jerry is not built to handle uncertainty. He needs walls around him, even if they are thin. He needs rituals, even if they are mundane. He needs to feel necessary, even if only to a few people. Hope, for him, is not a dream of a better future. It is the belief that the present can still matter. His fragility shows not in weakness, but in how deeply he feels every slight shift around him. When Beth seems distant, he spirals internally. When Rick mocks him, he absorbs the blow even when he laughs on the surface. When Morty becomes more independent, Jerry feels the quiet ache of irrelevance. His sensitivity is constant, a pulse beneath his attempts at humor. And yet, that sensitivity is the same thing that makes his hope tremble, but never break. Jerry cares so deeply that he cannot let go, even when the world punishes him for it. There is a moment in his life, early on, where he becomes aware of how fragile his place is within his own family. It's not expressed with drama. It is a quiet realization that blooms in the middle of an ordinary day. He sees the way Beth looks at Rick with admiration, the way the kids gravitate toward the excitement Rick brings, the way even mundane meals can become a backdrop for Rick's dismissive comments. Jerry feels the shift before anyone acknowledges it. His position in the family hierarchy is not just low, it is unstable. And he senses that instability long before anyone else treats it as real. Hope, for Jerry, becomes a negotiation. He bargains with himself to stay positive, to not interpret every joke as an attack, to believe that Beth still loves him, to assume that his contribution to the family has value. He tries holding these beliefs like fragile objects, trembling in his hands. Every time he fumbles, the doubts surge, but he picks the hope back up anyway. He repairs it with shaky optimism, the kind that requires immense emotional energy, even though others fail to notice. One of the most defining experiences in Jerry's emotional life is the moment he realizes that being good is not enough to make people love you. Jerry is not unkind, cruel, or selfish. He does not manipulate or betray. His flaws are softer. He becomes annoying when nervous, passive when overwhelmed, insecure when pressured. His mistakes are born from vulnerability rather than malice. And yet, these mistakes cost him dearly. He watches people he loves drift away, not because he wronged them, but because he wasn't the version of himself he wished he could be. This is one of Jerry's lifelong agonies. He loses people not through cruelty, but through inadequacy. It is a quieter kind of heartbreak, one the world rarely recognizes.
And that is why his hope is so fragile. It grows in the cracks of self-doubt. As the years pass, Jerry begins to understand that hope is not something that protects you. Hope is something you protect. It sits in your hands, delicate and easily crushed, and you have to decide, again and again, whether it is worth carrying despite the weight. He feels this most at night, when the house is quiet and everyone is asleep. Jerry lies awake staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, worrying about the next morning, wondering whether Beth regrets choosing him. These nights are long, filled with questions that never find answers, but each morning without fail he gets up and tries again. That decision, repeated countless times, is its own kind of courage. There is a part of Jerry that understands he is replaceable. This understanding is not abstract. He has seen a universe where Beth chose someone else. He has seen versions of himself that were never born, versions that died early, versions that thrived without him. Jerry's identity is not reinforced by cosmic importance. It is threatened by cosmic irrelevance. Where Rick sees infinite versions of himself as proof of superiority, Jerry sees infinite versions as proof that nothing he does will ever anchor him firmly in his family. This knowledge should crush him. It should erase his will to try. And yet, it doesn't. Jerry continues to hope, despite evidence that hope is irrational. His fragility comes from the gap between who he is and who he wants to be. He wishes he could be confident, or brave, or admirable. He wishes he could inspire Beth in the way Rick does. He wishes he could be the father Morty looks up to. But Jerry's strength is not in becoming the person he
thinks he should be. It is in remaining the person he is even when the world pushes him to break. Where others find purpose in ambition or intellect, Jerry finds purpose in stability, in care, in small acts of love. He is the person who wants to make dinner, who wants to watch a movie with his family, who wants to fix a broken lamp instead of exploring a broken dimension. These desires seem dull in the eyes of a cosmic adventurer, but they are not small to Jerry. They are sacred. They are the anchor he ties himself to, keeping him grounded when everything else spins beyond comprehension. The fragility of Jerry's hope becomes most apparent during moments where he feels temporarily loved. These moments glow warmly in his memory. A quiet evening where Beth holds his hand without pulling away. A rare morning where Morty asks him for advice. A moment where Summer smiles at him with genuine affection. These are not many, but they are enough. Jerry stores them like precious artifacts, replaying them when doubt swells. Each memory is a candle in the dark illuminating the path forward. They are not constant, which is why they matter so much. Jerry's hope depends on these tiny sparks. But hope, especially fragile hope, comes with fear. Jerry fears disappointment before it arrives. He fears rejection before it happens. He fears that every moment of happiness will reveal itself to be temporary. He carries these anxieties silently, not because he wants to hide them, but because he does not know how to articulate them. Jerry's emotions are complicated, tangled between longing and insecurity, and he often cannot differentiate between the two. So he simply keeps going, hoping that today will hurt less than yesterday. His relationship with Beth is perhaps the most complex expression of this fragile hope. Jerry loves her deeply, but he senses the distance between them. He tries to bridge it with affection, humor, or reassurance, yet his attempts sometimes highlight the gap instead of closing it. Beth, driven by her fears and ambitions, often forgets that Jerry's fragility is not a weakness, but a form of emotional honesty. He is vulnerable because he cares. He hesitates because he feels. He panics because things matter to him. And Jerry continues hoping that Beth will see this, even when she doesn't. That hope is heavy. It pulls him forward, even when his heart trembles. Jerry's hope is also tied to something pure, something almost childlike. He believes that people can be good, that families can stay together, that kindness has value. These beliefs are not supported by the world he lives in, yet he clings to them because they are part of who he is. In a universe governed by chaos, Jerry becomes an anchor for innocence, not because he refuses to grow, but because he refuses to abandon his heart. If there is a single truth that defines Jerry Smith, it is this: his hope survives because he refuses to let cruelty rewrite him. He endures humiliation, rejection, cosmic insignificance, and personal insecurity, yet he continues to love. He continues to try. He continues to believe that somewhere within all the noise, there is still a place for him. That persistence is not foolish. It is brave. It is quiet, but powerful. It is fragile, but enduring. It is Jerry. And as he falls asleep each night, hope curled gently beside his fear, Jerry whispers the same promise to himself, even if he never says it aloud. He will get up tomorrow. He will keep going. He will keep loving, even when the world gives him every reason not to. That is the fragile hope of Jerry Smith. Not triumphant, not unbreakable, simply real. Jerry Smith lives in a world where the question of whether he matters is not symbolic or poetic. It is literal. Every day he wakes up in a house where he can feel the subtle drift of affection around him, where each relationship is a negotiation between comfort and doubt. Jerry is surrounded by people who are extraordinary in ways he cannot understand, people who carry a kind of chaotic brilliance that he does not share. And because of this, the question of being needed sits heavily on him, like a quiet pressure behind every breath. It shapes his thoughts, even when he tries not to think about it. For Jerry, being needed is not about ego. It is about survival. It is his way of anchoring himself to a world that constantly reminds him how easy it would be for life to move on without him. He sees it in Beth's independence, in Rick's dominance of every room he walks into, in Morty's growing confidence, in Summer's sharp insight. Jerry does not have the same gravitational pull as the others. People do not orbit around him. Instead, he orbits around them, trying to find his place in a system that often seems too fast, too loud, too unpredictable. When Jerry speaks, he hopes his voice lands somewhere soft. When he offers help, he prays it makes a difference. When he reaches out emotionally, he wants someone to hold on. Every gesture he makes carries the weight of someone who fears that one wrong step might push him out of the picture entirely. This fear does not appear dramatically. It reveals itself when he hesitates before giving an opinion, or when he apologizes before finishing a sentence, or when he overcompensates with humor that falls flat. These small behaviors come from the same place, the fear of not being chosen. Jerry remembers times in his life when he felt essential. The early days with Beth, when love felt warm and new. The years when Morty was young enough to think his father hung the stars in the sky. The moments when Summer looked to him not for answers, but for reassurance. These memories glow faintly in his chest like embers that refuse to die out. Jerry holds onto them because they remind him that he once had a place that did not tremble beneath his feet. But memories can be both comfort and torment. They remind him of what he fears he has lost. As Jerry ages, he begins to understand that being needed is a shifting thing. People change, circumstances evolve, emotions transform. Sometimes he feels included, and for a moment his chest loosens and he can breathe easily. Other times he feels invisible, and the silence around him becomes thick, almost suffocating. These fluctuations shape Jerry's emotional landscape. His hope rises and falls like a fragile tide, pulled by forces he cannot control. Jerry's fear of not being chosen was not born in adulthood. It began quietly in childhood, long before anyone knew his name. He was the kind of child who wanted to please, who felt responsible for the moods around him, who believed that harmony was something he had to maintain. If someone was upset, he took it personally. If someone seemed distant, he worried he had done something wrong. Jerry grew up learning that love was something he had to earn, not something that simply existed. This lesson settled into him like sediment, layer upon layer, shaping him slowly and permanently. As an adult, this fear colors every relationship Jerry has. In his marriage to Beth, he tries to hold on to her with a mixture of dedication and anxiety. He wants her not because she completes him, but because she represents the one place in the world where he once felt chosen. When Beth pulls away emotionally, Jerry spirals inside. He analyzes every conversation, every glance, every pause, searching for clues about what he did wrong. He never asks directly. He is afraid that the answer will confirm his worst fear, that Beth regrets him, that she does not need him anymore, that she only stays because the alternative would be inconvenient or painful. Jerry's insecurities often appear foolish or irritating to others. People see his neediness, but they rarely see the depth of the fear beneath it. Jerry does not cling because he wishes to control. He clings because he is terrified of being left behind. He does not argue because he is stubborn. He argues because he feels the ground shifting under him, and disagreement feels like another crack forming in the fragile foundation of his relationships. When Rick enters the family, Jerry's fear intensifies. Rick is everything Jerry is not. Charismatic, brilliant, unpredictable, commanding. People listen to Rick even when he is wrong. They follow him even when he leads them to danger. Jerry watches this dynamic unfold, and it confirms the deepest insecurity he carries, that the world does not choose people like him, that people prefer excitement over stability, genius over sincerity, chaos over comfort. Rick does not need anyone, and Jerry needs everyone. This contrast becomes a mirror Jerry cannot escape. Rick does not overtly try to replace Jerry, yet his presence alone makes Jerry feel like a placeholder. Jerry senses Beth's admiration for her father, even when she hides it behind frustration. He sees Morty's dependence on Rick for adventure and validation. He watches Summer become fascinated by the possibilities Rick exposes, and in these moments, Jerry's fear grows quietly. He imagines a version of the family where Rick replaces him, where he becomes the person who is not invited on trips, not consulted on decisions, not part of the important stories. This fear may not be entirely rational, but it is real to Jerry. It gnaws at him constantly. Jerry's need to feel chosen also shapes his parenting. He wants Morty and Summer to see him as a reliable figure, even though he often doubts his own competence. He tries to give advice even when he does not fully understand the situation. He tries to sound confident even when his voice shakes. He wants so badly to be the kind of father they can depend on. But whenever he sees the look of disappointment on their faces, or the way they turn to Rick instead, Jerry feels something inside him tighten painfully. It is the sensation of slipping out of relevance, the slow erosion of a role he once believed belonged to him. The tragedy of Jerry Smith is not that he lacks value. It is that he cannot see his own value clearly. The family loves him in ways he cannot recognize. Morty loves him for his gentleness, even if he hides it behind impatience. Summer loves him for his earnestness, even when she teases him. Beth loves him in a complicated way that includes both frustration and loyalty. Yet Jerry struggles to accept these truths because his internal fears drown out external reality. He believes that love must look a certain way, and when it does not fit his idea, he assumes it is absent. Jerry's fragile hope reappears in small bursts, often when he least expects it. A rare moment when Beth laughs at one of his jokes. A quiet afternoon when Morty sits beside him without asking for anything. A moment where Summer watches a show with him on the couch. These moments nourish him. They become emotional fuel he stores for the storms that inevitably follow. Jerry does not need grand gestures. He needs signs that he has not become invisible. And every time the family shows even a little affection, Jerry feels a warmth inside that he struggles to express. But Jerry also fears that this warmth will disappear. He lives with the constant tension between gratitude and dread. Gratitude for the moments when he feels loved, and dread that the next moment might reveal that those feelings were temporary. This emotional tension defines Jerry's internal world. It makes happiness feel precarious, like a fragile structure built on shifting sand. There are times when Jerry believes he brings more harm than good, when his mistakes lead to arguments, or when his presence seems to dampen the mood, or when Rick's insults become too loud to ignore. In these moments, Jerry contemplates stepping back, shrinking himself, making less noise. He thinks that maybe the family would be happier if he took up less space. This thought hurts him deeply, but it also feels familiar. It echoes lessons he learned long ago, that being wanted is not guaranteed, that being chosen is conditional, that love can fade quietly without warning. And yet, despite all of this, Jerry continues to hope. That hope may tremble, but it does not die. His hope is not built on delusion. It is built on the small truths he collects through the years, the times Beth defends him, the times Summer hugs him unexpectedly, the times Morty calls him Dad with affection instead of irritation. The times Rick, without intending to, shows that he acknowledges Jerry's humanity. These moments are rare, but they are real, and Jerry holds onto them as proof that he still matters. Jerry's need to be chosen is not selfish. It is deeply
human. It is the universal desire to feel like your existence makes a difference to someone. It is the longing to wake up knowing that if you disappeared, someone would feel the empty space you left behind. Jerry feels this longing intensely, maybe more intensely than anyone else in the show. And that intensity becomes both his weakness and his strength. Jerry's fragile hope grows from this longing. It grows in the cracks of his insecurities, in the shadow of his fears, in the quiet corners where he stores every small moment of affection. His hope is fragile because it is built by someone who has been hurt many times, but it survives because Jerry refuses to let go of the belief that love is still possible, even when he feels invisible. At the end of the day, Jerry's greatest fear is not humiliation or failure or inadequacy. It is the fear of not being chosen, the fear that the people he loves will look at the universe of possibilities and decide that he is no longer part of their story. This fear haunts him in moments of silence, but his hope carries him through the noise. Jerry continues to show up, to try, to care, not because he believes he is extraordinary, but because he believes that love, even fragile love, is worth fighting for. Jerry falls asleep each night holding on to this fragile hope. It rests beside his worry, his insecurity, his longing, and as he drifts into dreams, he whispers a quiet promise to himself. He will keep trying, he will keep loving, he will keep believing that he deserves to be chosen, even when the world makes him doubt it. That is the quiet courage of Jerry Smith.
Jerry Smith is afraid of many things. He is afraid of losing the people he loves. He is afraid of disappointing them. He is afraid of not being enough. He is afraid of being too much. He fears chaos, unpredictability, judgment, and silence. He fears the smallest arguments because they feel like tremors of something larger. He fears the future because it feels full of rooms he does not know how to enter. He even fears happiness because he worries it will reveal itself as temporary. And yet, inside every one of these fears, there is a small pocket where courage tries to grow quietly. Jerry's courage is not the kind that appears in sudden bursts. It is not bold or flamboyant. It does not announce itself with declarations. Jerry's courage sits in the corners of moments that others overlook. It appears when he chooses to speak, even though his voice shakes. It appears when he shows vulnerability, even though he expects to be laughed at. It appears when he admits a mistake, even though he fears he will be judged harshly. His courage grows slowly inside his fear, almost unnoticed even by himself. Most people imagine courage as an absence of fear. For Jerry, courage is something entirely different. It is what emerges when fear is overwhelming, and he acts anyway. Fear becomes the soil his courage grows in, and because his fears are so vast, his courage, despite its quiet nature, is more powerful than anyone realizes. Jerry does not have the luxury of feeling strong often. Strength for him is not a familiar sensation. He knows what it feels like to be uncertain, embarrassed, or sidelined. But strength is something he tries to access anyway. It appears when he senses danger around his family. It appears when he believes they need him. It appears when he is pushed past a threshold he did not know he had. Courage rises in him, in moments when even Jerry is surprised by himself. He does not see himself as brave. Jerry thinks of himself as someone who reacts to life rather than shapes it. But this underestimation becomes another layer of his quiet courage. Real bravery is not always seen by the person who carries it. Sometimes it reveals itself only in hindsight. The world around him rarely acknowledges these moments, but they exist. They accumulate like tiny stones at the bottom of a river. None are large alone, but together they shape the flow of his life. Jerry's fear is rooted in his sensitivity. He is emotionally open in ways that leave him exposed. He feels deeply even when he tries to hide it. He interprets tone, expression, and silence as if they are clues to a puzzle he is trying to solve. Jerry does not interpret the world through logic. He interprets it through emotion. And because he feels so much, he fears so much. Yet those emotions are also what allow courage to grow. Every fear gives him another opportunity to choose love, even when it hurts. Jerry's courage becomes most visible during times when he believes he has nothing left to lose. These moments are rare but significant. They show that the part of Jerry that fears everything also contains a part that refuses to surrender. This part appears when he feels cornered, when every insecurity is pressed against him at once. In these moments, courage becomes an instinct instead of a choice. He steps forward, not because he believes he can handle the situation, but because he believes the cost of not stepping forward would hurt him more deeply. One of Jerry's most defining qualities is that he will always try to protect the people he loves, even if he does not think he is strong enough to succeed. This instinct is not grounded in confidence, it is grounded in devotion. Jerry's desire to protect his family is not heroic, it is personal. It comes from love that is often unspoken but always present. When threats appear, Jerry's fear becomes a wave that crashes against his courage. Most times, fear wins. But there are moments when courage breaks through. His courage is not only tied to danger, it is tied to honesty. Jerry's emotional transparency is its own form of bravery. He is willing to admit vulnerability in a world that punishes it. He apologizes even when he does not know if his apology will be accepted. He reveals insecurities that others would bury. He expresses love in a straightforward way that feels outdated in a family full of sharp intelligence and guarded hearts. Jerry does not hide behind irony or detachment. He wears his emotions openly, and that honesty is a rare kind of courage. Jerry's fear of rejection creates a paradox inside him. He is terrified of being left behind, so he often clings and hesitates. But the same fear sometimes motivates him to step toward others with sincerity that carries more bravery than anyone seems to notice. When he tells Beth he loves her, he says it knowing she might not always feel the same way with equal intensity. When he comforts Morty after a difficult day, he risks being brushed aside or misunderstood. When he supports Summer even when she does not ask for it, he risks being dismissed. Every one of these small acts holds courage inside fear. Jerry often believes he is weak, but weakness is not the inability to be strong. Weakness is the refusal to try, and Jerry never refuses. Even when he doubts himself, even when things seem hopeless, he continues to show up. He remains emotionally present. He continues to love. And that perseverance is part of what makes him stronger than he realizes. There are moments when Jerry's courage collides with his fear in surprising ways. Sometimes he reaches a breaking point. His fear becomes too loud, too overwhelming, too heavy. He tries to avoid conflict, but conflict finds him anyway. He tries to maintain peace, but emotional storms erupt around him. He tries to hold on to the people he loves, but he feels them slipping through his fingers. These moments create emotional pressure that forces something inside him to shift. Jerry surprises himself by standing up for what he believes in, even if his voice cracks or his hands shake. His bravery in these moments is not elegant. It is raw and messy and emotional, but it is real. Courage also shows itself when Jerry acknowledges his mistakes. Admitting fault is not easy for anyone. For Jerry, it feels like a confirmation of the fear that he is not enough. Yet he apologizes anyway, because he believes relationships are worth saving. His eagerness to repair what is broken is often misunderstood as desperation, but it comes from sincerity, not insecurity. Jerry believes in the value of reconciliation. He believes in trying again. He believes in second chances. That belief is woven deeply into his courage. Jerry's fear often makes him feel small. He feels like a person who takes up too much space emotionally and too little space physically. He tries to shrink himself to avoid criticism. He tries to soften his opinions. He tries to step aside when others seem more confident. And yet there is a part of him that wants to stand tall, a part that wants to be seen clearly, a part that wishes he could speak without trembling. That desire is its own form of courage, even if he has not yet figured out how to express it fully. Jerry's courage is also found in his resilience. He has endured humiliation that would crush most people. He has faced cosmic absurdities that distort reality. He has survived emotional distances inside his marriage that would fracture other relationships. Every setback leaves a mark, yet he continues to rebuild himself. He continues to hope. He continues to believe that love is possible even when it feels distant. This resilience is not the loud or triumphant kind. It is the steady kind, the quiet kind, the kind that takes time to notice but is impossible to dismiss once you see it. Jerry's afraid of the universe, but he faces it anyway. He's afraid of judgment, but he seeks connection anyway. He's afraid of being unlovable, but he continues to love anyway. These choices might not seem heroic to the people around him, but they reveal a strength most people overlook. Jerry's courage grows inside every fear he tries to navigate, and because he has so many fears, his courage has many places to take root. Fear, for Jerry, is not a wall. It is a landscape he walks through daily. Courage is the path he carves inside that landscape. He creates it slowly with every decision to keep going, to keep trying, to keep believing that his presence matters. His courage is not grand, but it is genuine. It is not perfect, but it is persistent. It does not shine brightly, but it glows softly inside him, guiding him even when the world around him feels too large. Jerry's courage is revealed most clearly when he allows himself to be emotionally open. Vulnerability is not something he performs. It is something he experiences. He tells people he needs them. He tells people he is afraid. He tells people he is sorry. These admissions may
seem simple, but they require a depth of courage that many characters in his world refuse to access. Jerry's honesty exposes him to pain, yet he chooses honesty anyway. That choice is a form of bravery that goes unnoticed because it is not dramatic. Jerry lives in a family where emotional armor is common. Rick wears cynicism, Beth wears detachment, Summer wears independence, Morty wears confusion, Jerry wears his heart on his sleeve. This difference makes him seem fragile, but it also makes him authentic. Courage and vulnerability are intertwined for him. He cannot separate them. He does not know how to be brave without revealing his fear, and that makes his courage incredibly human. Jerry's fear may shape him, but it does not define him. The courage that grows inside his fear defines him more clearly. It is quiet and often misunderstood, but it is always present. It is the courage of a man who continues to love despite constant uncertainty. The courage of a man who continues to show up despite feeling inadequate. The courage of a man who holds on to hope even when it feels fragile. Jerry's courage grows slowly, hidden inside his fear, yet it shapes everything he does. And when Jerry lies in bed at night, fear pressing lightly against his chest, courage rests beside it. He may not always recognize it, but it guides him quietly. It whispers that tomorrow he will try again. It reminds him that fear does not erase worth. It tells him that love, though difficult, is never wasted. Jerry listens to that whisper, even when he doubts it. And that willingness to listen is where his courage lives.
Jerry Smith has always felt like life is something that happens around him rather than through him. He wakes up each morning in a house that feels familiar but never quite secure, surrounded by people he loves, but whose paths often seem far more defined than his own. Jerry moves through his days with the sense that he is borrowing time, borrowing space, borrowing purpose. He wants a life that feels like it belongs to him completely, steady and warm and chosen. But this desire rubs against an ache that follows him everywhere. The ache of feeling like he lives inside someone else's story. Jerry has always imagined what a complete life looks like. A life where he feels valued without condition. A life where he feels capable without constant self-doubt. A life where his presence feels natural, not negotiated. He imagines waking up and knowing exactly what role he plays in the world. He imagines a version of himself who is not afraid to take up space, who does not apologize for breathing too loudly or wanting too much. These dreams are simple, yet they feel impossibly distant. He wants a life that does not tremble under the weight of other people's expectations or dismissals. But wanting is different from having, and Jerry feels that gap every day. Jerry's ache is not loud. It is quiet, constant, and often hidden beneath jokes or awkward smiles. It follows him in ordinary moments. When he pours cereal and wonders if anyone would notice if he was gone from the kitchen. When he sits on the couch while the rest of the family discusses something he does not understand. When he offers a suggestion that goes unheard, and he smiles politely as if he never spoke. Jerry feels the ache of invisibility even in a crowded room. This ache is not self-pity. It is recognition. He senses the distance between himself and the life he wishes he had, and he cannot bridge it easily. Jerry has never been the architect of his own life. Things have happened to him more often than because of him. He fell into a relationship with Beth when both of them were young and desperate to escape their own insecurities. He drifted into a job that never felt right, quietly aware that he was not respected by those around him. He became a father with equal parts excitement and confusion, never entirely sure if he was ready. Each major decision in his life feels like something he stumbled into rather than chose with intention. And this lack of authorship weighs on him. He wants to feel like the protagonist of his own story, but he often feels like a character in the background. The ache deepens whenever Jerry compares himself to the people around him. Beth is confident in her skills, capable under pressure, steadfast in her decisions. Rick is brilliant in a way that bends the universe, turning reality into a playground for his intellect. Morty is growing, changing, learning, and finding pockets of courage Jerry never had at the same age. Summer is fierce, intelligent, adaptable, and increasingly aware of her place in the world. Jerry looks at each of them and sees individuals who choose their paths, even when those paths are chaotic. He sees motion and determination, and then he turns inward and sees hesitation. He sees someone who has been waiting his whole life for permission to live boldly, someone who has been hoping that one day someone would tell him that he is allowed to take charge, allowed to decide, allowed to want things without apology. Jerry does not lack imagination. He lacks confidence in his right to shape the world around him, and because of this, his life often feels borrowed instead of owned. There are moments when Jerry tries to claim his life, small moments when he attempts to step forward rather than shrink. He might voice an opinion more firmly than usual, or try to set a boundary, or express a dream he has been afraid to acknowledge. But these moments are delicate. They tremble under pressure. The slightest pushback makes him retreat, sometimes so quickly that the moment disappears before anyone realizes he was trying to grow. When Beth challenges him, or Rick mocks him, or the kids roll their eyes, Jerry folds inward. He takes these reactions as proof that he is not allowed to want more. He convinces himself that a life that belongs to him is unrealistic. But deep inside, Jerry still hungers for that life. The ache reminds him. It follows him during long drives when he imagines what a happier version of himself would do. It follows him during walks in the evening when the world is quiet and he can hear his own thoughts clearly. It follows him during lonely afternoons when he wonders what passions he might have discovered if he had believed in himself earlier. The ache is painful, but it is also a sign that he has not given up. It means he still hopes for something better. Jerry's longing for a life he can claim fully is tied to his search for identity. His sense of self has always been fragile, shaped heavily by the people around him. As a child, he defined himself through approval. As a partner, he defined himself through Beth's affection and disappointment. As a father, he defined himself through the reactions of his children. As a family member, he defined himself through Rick's constant belittling. Jerry's identity has been built externally, not internally, and because of this, it shifts constantly, leaving him unanchored and unsure of who he truly is. There are rare times when Jerry glimpses the person he could be. These moments are quiet and fleeting. They often emerge when he is alone, away from the noise that shapes him. Sometimes they appear when he works on a small project, something simple and tangible that does not judge him. He might fix a broken object and feel a sense of competence that surprises him. He might cook a meal and feel the warmth of creating something with intention. He might care for the family pet or water the plants and experience a tiny spark of peace. These moments reveal a version of Jerry who is capable, calm, and gentle, a version that exists beneath the layers of insecurity. Jerry wishes this version of himself could take the lead. He wishes he could live from that place instead of from fear. But fear has shaped his life for too long. And because of that, the ache persists. It is the ache of wanting a life he feels he deserves, but not knowing how to claim it without losing what he already has. Jerry's relationship with Beth intensifies this ache. He loves her deeply, but their marriage often reflects the imbalance in how they view themselves. Beth sees herself as someone who settled. Jerry sees himself as someone who was chosen despite being unworthy. Both beliefs create tension that never fully dissolves. Jerry wants a marriage where he feels equal. He wants to feel like a partner rather than a placeholder, but he fears asserting himself because he believes it might reveal that he is not enough. He wants a life with Beth where their connection feels steady rather than fragile, where affection flows naturally rather than guardedly. He wants evenings where they talk without layers of sadness beneath the conversation. He wants mornings where he does not worry that she is comparing him to other possibilities. He wants a marriage that feels like a home instead of a negotiation. But wanting does not fix the cracks that time has carved into their relationship. Jerry knows this, and it adds to the ache. Jerry also wants a clearer place in his children's lives. He wants to guide them without feeling replaced. He wants to feel like they respect him even if they sometimes roll their eyes. He wants to know that, in the long run, the love he gives them will matter. He watches Morty and Summer grow into themselves with a bittersweet mix of pride and loneliness. They need him less as time goes on, and this natural progression feels like a quiet grieving process. Jerry wants to adapt, but he does not know how to redefine his role without feeling lost. The ache becomes heaviest when Jerry imagines a future where he finally feels confident. He imagines waking up in a house where he feels comfortable in his own skin. He imagines sitting at the dinner table and speaking without hesitation. He imagines Beth reaching for his hand with warmth instead of obligation. He imagines a version of himself who is proud of the way he moves through the world. These fantasies soothe him briefly, but they also deepen the pain when he returns to reality. Despite all of this, the ache is not hopeless. It is a sign of desire, not despair. It reveals that Jerry has not surrendered to the idea that his life is permanent in its current form. He believes change is possible, even if he does not know how to begin. His hope lives inside this ache. It grows there, shy and trembling, but persistent. Jerry wants a life that belongs to him, and that longing means he believes it can exist. Jerry's ache is a complicated
companion. It hurts him, but it also motivates him. It pushes him toward moments of self-reflection. It makes him notice small joys with an intensity others might overlook. It reminds him that he is not numb. He feels deeply, even when it hurts. And in a strange way, that depth is a sign of life. Jerry's ache proves that he is still reaching for something he has not yet had. It proves that he believes he deserves more than he has allowed himself to claim. He falls asleep many nights thinking about the life he wants. Sometimes the thoughts soothe him. Other times they make his chest tighten, but he keeps thinking them because the dream matters. Jerry wants a life that is not defined by the people around him. He wants a life that grows from his own heart. And even though he does not know how to get there, he holds that vision close. It keeps him moving. It keeps him hoping. And somewhere inside him, beneath the ache, beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, Jerry believes that one day he might look around and feel at home inside his own life. That belief is fragile, but it is real, and it guides him quietly through every day he wakes up trying again.
Jerry Smith does not fear being alone in the literal sense. He can sit in a room by himself without panic. He can run errands without company. He can watch television alone and feel entertained enough. What Jerry fears is the loneliness that settles deeper than silence. The kind of loneliness that comes from feeling unneeded, unseen, or emotionally distant from the people who matter most to him. This loneliness grows inside him slowly, often beginning with something small and unimportant before expanding into a quiet collapse that he tries desperately to hide. Jerry experiences loneliness even when surrounded by family. It is not caused by physical distance, but by emotional distance. He feels it when Rick enters a room and the energy shifts toward excitement that Jerry cannot contribute to. He feels it when Beth becomes absorbed in her work or her ambitions, leaving Jerry unsure of where he fits beside her. He feels it when Morty and Summer rush off into another adventure or crisis he cannot comprehend. Jerry stands on the edge of these moments like someone watching life through a window. He can see everything clearly, but he cannot feel part of what is happening. This sense of emotional separation has always been part of Jerry's life. Even as a child, he wondered if people genuinely enjoyed his company or if they tolerated him out of politeness. He tried hard to please others because he believed that pleasing them was the only way to earn connection. When people drifted away, Jerry interpreted it as proof that he had failed somehow. These early beliefs shaped the way he views loneliness as an adult. For Jerry, loneliness is not a neutral state. It is a verdict. It tells him that he is not wanted enough. It tells him that he is not important enough. It tells him that he is not chosen. Jerry does not talk about this loneliness because he believes that acknowledging it would make him seem pathetic. He fears that if he reveals how deeply it hurts, people will pull away faster. So instead, he covers it with humor or forced optimism. He tries to look cheerful even when his chest feels heavy. He tries to smile even when his eyes feel tired. He tries to pretend he is fine because the alternative feels too vulnerable. But pretending does not make the loneliness fade. It only pushes it deeper. Jerry's loneliness strikes hardest in moments that seem small to others. When Beth forgets to tell him something important. When Morty laughs at something Rick says without noticing Jerry's presence. When Summer walks past him while talking on her phone. These tiny moments accumulate inside him until they form a quiet ache he cannot ignore. It is not the events themselves that hurt him, it is what they represent. They remind him that other people's worlds continue with or without him. They remind him that he is not always a priority. Jerry often isolates himself when the loneliness becomes overwhelming. He withdraws not because he wants to be alone, but because he believes that his presence might burden others. He hides his sadness behind excuses about needing rest or wanting to watch something privately. He retreats to quiet corners of the house, hoping no one asks questions. He tells himself he is fine. He tells himself he is being dramatic. He tells himself he should be grateful for what he has. But none of these reassurances make the loneliness disappear. When Jerry sits alone in these moments, he overthinks every recent interaction. He replays conversations and wonders if he said something embarrassing. He replays arguments and blames himself, even when he was not wrong. He replays moments of silence and imagines they were filled with judgment. His mind becomes a place where loneliness multiplies, filling the gaps between memory and fear. Jerry's internal world grows louder the quieter his surroundings become. Jerry also feels loneliness during family events where he tries to participate but cannot match the energy around him. He watches everyone else speak confidently, laugh loudly, or debate passionately. He tries to join in, but his words feel soft and out of place. Sometimes he talks and no one responds. Other times he shares something and the conversation moves on too quickly. Jerry feels the sting of invisibility each time this happens. He does not blame others for it. He blames himself for not being interesting enough. The collapse inside Jerry begins with doubt. It grows with overthinking. It deepens with the belief that he is replaceable. This collapse does not happen quickly. It unfolds gradually like a dimming light. He becomes quieter. He becomes tentative. He becomes hesitant to express himself. He convinces himself that his emotions are not worth sharing. The collapse is not dramatic, but it is destructive. It reshapes how Jerry sees himself. And once it begins, it is difficult for him to stop it. Jerry's loneliness becomes even more complicated because of his relationship with Beth. He loves her deeply, but his connection with her often feels strained. There are days when he senses warmth from her, and on those days he feels safe. But there are other days when her silence feels sharp, when her sigh carries disappointment, when her attention drifts away. Jerry interprets these moments as signs of emotional distance. He wonders if she regrets choosing him. He wonders if she longs for something more than the quiet life they share. He wonders if she loves him the way he loves her. These thoughts turn into shadows that follow him into the quiet spaces of the home. Jerry fears bringing up this loneliness with Beth because he worries she will agree with him. He worries she will say she feels distant too. He worries she will confirm his fear that their connection is fading. So he stays silent, carrying the loneliness alone. The tragedy is that Jerry does not realize Beth feels her own version of distance, shaped by her insecurities. They are both lonely in different ways. But Jerry interprets his loneliness as a sign of personal inadequacy instead of relational complexity. Jerry's loneliness also affects his relationship with Morty and Summer. He loves his children deeply, but he often feels like an afterthought in their lives. They have grown into individuals with their own interests, their own adventures, and their own emotional struggles. Jerry tries to connect with them, but he sometimes feels like he is speaking a language they no longer use. He wants to be someone they seek out for comfort, but he knows that Rick takes up a lot of space in their development. Jerry senses the distance between himself and his children, and the loneliness that forms in that space is heavy. The quiet collapse inside Jerry's loneliness also reveals something important. It shows how deeply he cares. He would not feel lonely if he did not love his family. He would not ache if he did not want closeness. He would not fear drifting apart if connection did not matter to him. His loneliness is not proof of failure. It is proof of his emotional investment. Jerry feels deeply because he loves deeply, even when he feels unworthy of that love. Despite the pain it causes, Jerry's loneliness also contains a small spark of hope. He hopes that one day his family will notice when he feels distant. He hopes that someone will reach out without him having to ask. He hopes that one day he will feel included without forcing his way into conversations. He hopes that one day he will feel understood. This hope keeps him from collapsing completely. It keeps him from disappearing inside his loneliness. Jerry often imagines what life would feel like if loneliness did not linger in the background of his days. He imagines waking up with an easy sense of belonging. He imagines walking into a room and feeling welcomed without hesitation. He imagines laughing with his family and not wondering whether the laughter will fade as soon as he leaves the room. He imagines feeling chosen without question. These fantasies are bittersweet. They comfort him and wound him at the same time, but they also motivate him to keep trying. Jerry does not want to feel lonely. He does not want to feel like a passenger in his own life. He wants to feel close to the people around him. He wants connection that feels stable and secure. He wants conversations that do not make him feel out of place. He wants moments where he feels seen fully. He wants love that feels warm instead of fragile. These desires are not selfish. They are human. Loneliness will always be part of Jerry's emotional landscape, but it does not define him completely. It shapes him, but it does not erase him. It hurts him, but it also softens him. Jerry's loneliness makes him empathetic. It makes him patient. It makes him gentle in ways that others often overlook. He knows what it feels like to feel forgotten, so he tries not to forget others. He knows what it feels like to feel unimportant, so he tries to make others feel important when he can. His loneliness gives him a depth that others might not immediately see, but it is there, guiding him through quiet acts of kindness. And when night falls and the house becomes silent, Jerry sometimes sits with his loneliness instead of running from it. He looks at the world he occupies and wonders how he fits into it. He asks himself questions he cannot answer. He feels the ache inside his chest, but he also feels a small flicker of resilience. He knows that loneliness may visit him again tomorrow, but he also knows that hope still exists somewhere in the quiet places of his heart. That hope tells him that he can keep trying, that he can keep loving, that he can keep reaching for connection even when it feels far away. Loneliness may cause Jerry to collapse silently at times, but it never keeps him down for long. He always gets up again. He always tries again. And that is the quiet strength that lives beneath the ache inside him. Jerry Smith wakes up each morning beneath a weight that most people around him cannot see. It is not physical or loud. It does not come from a single source. It is the quiet accumulation of expectations that hover around him like a pressure in the air. Expectations that were never voiced clearly, yet always felt. Expectations that shape how he moves, how he speaks, how he interprets every moment of his life. Jerry carries these expectations not because someone told him to, but because he learned early in life that his worth seemed to depend on meeting them. These invisible expectations do not come from one person. They rise from everywhere at once. They come from the world that tells him he must be confident, even though he trembles inside. They come from his marriage that suggests he must be strong enough to lead, but gentle enough to never intimidate. They come from the workplace that expects competence without giving him the tools to succeed. They come from his family that wants reliability from him, while rarely treating him like someone capable of providing it. These expectations form a net around him, a net he tries to navigate without disappointing anyone. Jerry's sense of worth has always been tied to how well he performs in these roles. He believes that being good is not enough. He must be good in a way that satisfies everyone else. This way of thinking was not born overnight. It was formed through thousands of experiences that taught him that approval must be earned. As a child, he learned that people liked him most when he was agreeable. As a teenager, he learned that confidence was rewarded even if he did not feel confident at all. As an adult, he learned that society valued certainty, decisiveness, and competence, qualities he struggled to manifest convincingly. Jerry often feels like he is acting in a role he was not prepared for. He is expected to be a loving husband who provides emotional security, a stable father who understands the needs of two children growing faster than he can follow, and a responsible adult who navigates a world filled with complexities. He tries to meet these expectations, but every attempt feels shaky. Each misstep fuels the belief that he is not achieving enough. And because these expectations remain unspoken, Jerry cannot measure whether he is succeeding. He can only feel the disappointment when he thinks he is failing. The invisible expectations become strongest when Jerry interacts with Rick. Rick embodies everything Jerry believes he is not. Rick is bold, decisive, intelligent, and unapologetically confident. Standing next to Rick makes Jerry feel like he must rise to a standard he cannot reach. Jerry believes he must be more than he is in order to be taken seriously, yet the more he tries to rise, the more clearly he sees his limitations. Rick never asks Jerry to be anything specific. Rick mostly mocks him, dismisses him, or ignores him. Yet Jerry still feels the expectation to impress him, to earn his respect, to be someone Rick cannot belittle so easily. This is not because Jerry admires Rick, but because he believes that the acceptance of someone so powerful would mean confirmation that he has worth. Beth places another layer of expectations on Jerry, though often unintentionally. She grew up feeling that she had to prove herself constantly, and she expects competence from the people around her because she demands it from herself. She expects Jerry to act decisively, to support her dreams, to handle conflicts without collapsing emotionally. Jerry tries to meet these expectations because he loves her, but he struggles to understand what she truly wants from him. Sometimes she wants him to fight for her, other times she wants him to listen quietly, sometimes she wants him to take charge, other times she wants him to follow her lead. The ambiguity leaves Jerry guessing constantly, and each incorrect guess makes him feel smaller. With Morty and Summer, Jerry faces a different kind of expectation. They expect adulthood from him, even when they do not articulate it. They look up to him at times, but they also look past him often. Jerry senses that they expect reassurance, guidance, or emotional stability. He wants to provide all of that, but he often feels unprepared. He worries that every mistake he makes as a father will be something his children remember years from now. He tries to be a good parent, but this role comes with its own invisible expectations that Jerry carries heavily, even when his children do not realize it. Jerry does not resent these expectations. He does not blame the people around him. He accepts them as natural even though they weigh him down. The problem is not the expectations themselves. It is that Jerry believes his worth depends entirely on meeting them. When he thinks he has failed someone, he does not view it as an isolated incident. He sees it as proof that he is inadequate. He believes that failing once means he will always fail. This black and white thinking makes every misunderstanding feel monumental. A small argument becomes a sign that he is unlovable. A dismissed idea becomes a sign that he is unintelligent. A forgotten task becomes a sign that he is irresponsible. Jerry gives enormous meaning to small mistakes because he interprets them through the lens of his own insecurity. The invisible expectations become most painful when Jerry compares himself to the person he wishes he could be. He imagines a version of himself who speaks confidently, who leads with certainty, who can stand in a room with Rick and not feel overshadowed. He imagines a version of himself who earns Beth's admiration naturally, someone she loves without reservation. He imagines a version of himself who gives Morty and Summer guidance without stumbling over his own words. These imagined versions form yet another layer of expectation, one that Jerry places on himself. He believes he should be that person. He believes he
should grow faster. He believes he should overcome his insecurities easily. And when he cannot reach that ideal, he blames himself. Jerry also faces invisible expectations from the world around him. People assume he should know how to stand up for himself, yet he was never taught how. People assume he should know how to handle conflict, yet he fears confrontation deeply. People assume he should have a passion or talent that defines him, yet he struggles to identify what he is good at. People assume he should want more out of life, yet Jerry's dreams are modest and often dismissed as unambitious. He feels pressure to want the life others expect him to want, even when his heart leans towards something softer and simpler. These expectations carve grooves inside Jerry's sense of self. Each groove becomes a place where doubt settles. Each groove makes it harder for him to see his own value clearly. Jerry often feels like a collection of shortcomings instead of a whole person. He does not see the effort behind his actions. He sees only the moments when the effort falls short. He does not see the love behind his attempts. He sees only the imperfections in how he expresses it. Yet Jerry's struggle with expectations also reveals something important about him. He cares deeply about the people around him. He wants to meet their expectations because he wants them to be happy. He wants to be someone they can rely on. He wants to be someone they are proud of. Jerry's worth is tied to others not because he lacks individuality, but because he experiences relationships intensely. He believes love means responsibility. He believes connection means effort. He believes belonging means meeting people where they are, not demanding they move toward him. Jerry's challenge is not that he expects too much of himself. It is that he misunderstands what others expect from him. His family does not want perfection from him. They want presence. They want sincerity. They want effort. Jerry provides all of these things, yet he focuses on the moments when he struggles rather than the moments when he succeeds. His sense of worth remains tied to an invisible goal that moves every time he takes a step forward. The invisible expectations become clearest during moments when Jerry reaches the end of his emotional endurance. There are times when he tries as hard as he can, but still feels inadequate. He might plan something thoughtful, only for it to go unnoticed. He might try to comfort someone only for his words to come out wrong. He might try to assert himself only for the moment to collapse awkwardly. Each time this happens, Jerry feels the weight of failure pressing against him. He does not see these moments as part of growth. He sees them as permanent marks on his worth. And yet, even when Jerry feels crushed beneath these expectations, he never stops trying. His determination is subtle, but it is steady. He keeps showing up. He keeps loving. He keeps reaching out. He keeps hoping. Jerry's persistence is an expression of resilience that he does not recognize in himself. He believes he is failing because he cannot meet invisible standards. But the truth is that his worth lies in the effort itself. That effort is rare in a world shaped by ego and independence. Jerry's willingness to care, even when he fears disappointing others, reveals a depth of character many overlook. At night, when the world is quiet and the expectations fade slightly, Jerry lies awake and thinks about his place in the family. He wonders if he is doing enough. He wonders if he is living correctly. He wonders if he is giving his children a good example. He wonders if Beth sees his effort or only his flaws. He wonders if he should be stronger, braver, wiser, funnier. He wonders if his worth will ever feel stable instead of fragile. These thoughts swirl around him until they exhaust him, and eventually he falls asleep, hoping tomorrow he might feel lighter. Jerry may never fully escape the invisible expectations that shape his sense of worth, but he continues to grow around them. He continues to learn slowly that worth is not earned through perfection. Worth is found in intention, vulnerability, compassion, and effort. Jerry carries these qualities quietly, but they define him more than any expectation could. He may stumble, but he never abandons the people he loves. He may doubt himself, but he never stops trying. And slowly, in small but meaningful ways, Jerry begins to realize that the expectations he fears most are shadows. His worth is not defined by how perfectly he meets them. It is defined by the love he persists in giving day after day, even when he feels unworthy.
Jerry Smith has always struggled with identity in ways that are not immediately visible. He moves through life with an uncertain sense of who he is, as if his personality is something he borrowed instead of something he developed. His identity is fragile because it was shaped by years of adapting to the expectations of others rather than growing from his own desires or ambitions. Jerry is not empty or shallow. He is moldable. He shifts slightly in every environment, trying to fit the space he is given. And because the world around him moves quickly, confidently, and often without him, Jerry feels his identity slipping between his fingers like something he cannot hold tightly enough. Jerry's identity was built on a foundation that never felt fully stable. As a child, he learned that approval came from being agreeable, predictable, and unthreatening. He adopted these traits because they earned him the affection he craved. Over time, these traits became part of him, but they did not bring him closer to understanding who he really was. Instead, they shaped a version of Jerry who always tried to please others before understanding what he wanted for himself. This became the blueprint of his adult life. He learned to survive by adapting rather than by asserting. The instability of his identity becomes most noticeable whenever Jerry is surrounded by people who are more confident than he is. Rick, with his brilliance and chaotic dominance, makes Jerry feel like he must shrink in order to avoid humiliation. Beth, with her sharp insight and emotional intensity, makes Jerry feel like he must tread carefully to avoid disappointing her. Summer, with her growing sense of maturity and independence, makes Jerry feel like he must work harder to be taken seriously. Morty, with his evolving courage and confusion, makes Jerry feel like he must be a better father, even though he doubts his own ability to guide anyone. Jerry does not know how to be himself around these people, because he has never truly defined who he is to begin with. Because of this, Jerry often tries on different versions of himself. He is supportive when he believes support is needed. He is assertive when he believes strength is expected. He is humorous when he senses tension and wants to lighten the mood. He is apologetic when he fears conflict. Jerry shifts and bends based on what he thinks others want from him. While this makes him adaptable in some ways, it also makes him fragile. If someone rejects the version he offers, Jerry feels as though they are rejecting him entirely. He cannot separate his behavior from his identity. Criticism feels as if it cuts directly into who he is at the core. Jerry does not understand that identity is something that can change naturally. He believes it is something he must decide on once and maintain perfectly. This belief traps him. He feels pressure to create a coherent version of himself that fits neatly into the expectations of everyone else. When he fails to do so, he assumes the problem is not the expectations but himself. He believes he is flawed because he cannot be everything at once. This belief erodes his confidence slowly each day. The world around Jerry moves with a momentum he cannot match. Rick pursues cosmic adventures. Beth wrestles with complex emotions and ambitions. Morty and Summer evolve rapidly as they confront dangers and experiences beyond Jerry's imagination. While they grow, Jerry often feels stuck. He feels like he is standing still while everyone else rushes ahead. This creates a painful contrast in his mind. He views their growth as proof that he is falling behind. He sees their changes as evidence that he must reinvent himself constantly just to keep up. But reinvention is difficult when his identity was never firmly rooted. Jerry tries to measure his identity through accomplishment, but he struggles to identify achievements that feel meaningful. He did not become the professional he wanted to be. He did not become the confident partner he hoped to be. He did not become the steady father he imagined. These perceived failures become part of how he defines himself. He sees his limitations more clearly than his strengths. He overlooks the ways he contributes emotionally because emotional contributions do not feel like real accomplishments in the eyes of the world he inhabits. Jerry undervalues his empathy, his gentleness, and his sincerity because society rarely praises those traits loudly. There are moments when Jerry gets a brief glimpse of who he might be if he stopped trying to satisfy everyone else. These moments happen when he is around people who expect nothing of him. Perhaps it is a quiet afternoon when the family is out and he has the house to himself. Perhaps it is a conversation where he speaks honestly without trying to impress anyone. Perhaps it is a small moment of self-sufficiency when he accomplishes something simple but meaningful. In these moments, Jerry feels a spark of identity that belongs only to him, a person who is soft but not weak, a person who is anxious but still caring, a person who is flawed but not worthless. These moments are rare, but they show that Jerry's identity is not as empty as he fears. The fragility of Jerry's identity becomes most painful when he interprets rejection as confirmation that he does not exist meaningfully. When Rick mocks him, Jerry feels his sense of self collapse. When Beth expresses disappointment, Jerry feels his identity crack. When his children distance themselves, Jerry feels invisible. These reactions are intense because Jerry built his understanding of himself through the reflections of others. If those reflections are harsh, distorted, or dismissive, Jerry cannot separate them from his truth. He internalizes them completely. Jerry does not realize that others do not define their identities through external judgment in the same way he does. Rick does not care what people think of him. Beth defines herself through competence and ambition. Summer defines herself through independence. Morty defines himself through evolving experience. Jerry defines himself through acceptance. This difference makes him vulnerable, but it also makes him deeply human. He longs for affirmation because his identity depends on connection. His fragility is not weakness. It is the result of caring too much about belonging. The world moves on without Jerry, and he feels this movement deeply. He watches his family navigate adventures that he cannot join. He watches their personalities shift as they experience things he cannot understand. He watches their identities form and reform while his remains uncertain. This dynamic makes Jerry feel like he is being left behind emotionally. He feels like he must cling to the fragments of identity he has because he fears losing even those. Jerry's fragility does not mean he is incapable of growth. It means his growth takes longer. It means he must move slowly, cautiously, and thoughtfully. He must gather pieces of himself one moment at a time. He must learn that identity is not built through approval, but through acceptance. Acceptance of mistakes, acceptance of limitations, acceptance of strengths, and acceptance of the quiet things that make him who he is. Jerry must learn that he does not need to be extraordinary to be worthy. He does not need to match the speed of the world around him to have value. His identity can be steady even if the world moves forward without him. There are subtle signs that Jerry's identity is stronger than he believes. The way he comforts his children when they are afraid, the way he apologizes sincerely when he makes a mistake, the way he supports Beth even when their relationship is strained, the way he continues to hope despite constant doubt. These actions show that Jerry's identity is not hollow. It is built on empathy, vulnerability, and persistence. These traits may not be flashy, but they are meaningful. Jerry's fragility also reveals his emotional intelligence. He may not understand science or adventure or cosmic chaos, but he understands emotions deeply. He notices when someone is hurting even if they do not say it. He interprets silence with empathy rather than suspicion. He recognizes fear behind sarcasm. He sees sadness behind anger. These emotional perceptions form part of his identity that he undervalues because they are not traits his world celebrates, but they are traits that shape him into someone profoundly human. Jerry's identity may never be as firm as Rick's or as confident as Beth's or as evolving as his children's, but it does not need to be. Jerry's identity does not need to be extraordinary to be real. It needs to be acknowledged by him, not defined by others. He must learn slowly that the world can move without him and still have a place for him. He does not need to chase the pace of others to belong. He can find meaning in stillness. He can find identity in gentleness. He can find worth in being present, sincere, and emotionally open. And when Jerry lies in bed at night, thinking about who he is, he often assumes the answer is too small. But the truth is that Jerry's identity is not small. It is subtle. It is quiet. It is shaped by love rather than achievement. It is formed by hope rather than ambition. It is carried by vulnerability rather than confidence. Jerry may struggle to see it clearly, but it exists in every moment where he chooses to care, even when caring feels risky. It exists in every moment where he tries again, even when he doubts himself. It exists in every moment where he shows kindness, even when kindness is not returned. His identity is fragile, but it is also resilient, and that resilience carries him through a world that moves without him, gently reminding him that he has a place in it, even if...
Jerry Smith carries a quiet fear that follows him through every moment of his life. It is not fear of danger or chaos or the unpredictable universe that Rick drags the family through. It is the fear of losing the people he loves, not through disaster, but through slow emotional drift. Jerry feels this fear every time he wakes up and sees Beth staring distantly into her thoughts. He feels it every time Morty hurries past him to follow Rick into another adventure. He feels it every time Summer pulls away to deal with her own growing independence. Jerry tries very hard to be the glue that keeps the family from falling apart, yet he often believes he is the part most likely to be removed. The fear does not come from something sudden. It accumulates slowly through years of living in a house where affection often competes with tension. Jerry has always wanted a family that feels warm and steady, a place where people lean on each other for comfort instead of surviving through emotional armor. But he married someone who does not express love easily. He became the father of children who navigate crises he cannot imagine. He lives with a man whose presence distorts the family dynamic entirely. Jerry tries to build stability in a world that rarely stands still long enough for him to breathe. Jerry's attempts to hold the family together come from a tender place inside him. He loves deeply. He cares deeply. He tries genuinely. His efforts often go unnoticed because they are small, subtle, and sometimes awkward. He reminds Beth to eat when she becomes absorbed in her work. He asks Morty how he feels after a difficult day, even if his words come out clumsy. He compliments Summer's achievements even when she brushes them off. He tries to organize family activities or initiate conversations, even though he fears that everyone would rather be somewhere else. Jerry holds the family gently in ways that rarely get acknowledged. The fear behind these attempts is powerful. Jerry believes that if he stops trying, everything might fall apart. He fears that his presence is the thin thread holding the fragile parts of the family together. He fears that if he becomes distant, Beth will drift beyond reach. He fears that if he does not support his children, they will forget him completely. He fears that if he does not maintain some sense of normalcy, Rick's influence will swallow everything. These fears make Jerry work hard emotionally, even when others assume he is not doing enough. Jerry wants harmony. But harmony is not something that forms easily in his home. Beth carries unresolved resentment, frustration, and yearning. Rick carries trauma disguised as arrogance and detachment. Morty carries confusion and fear beneath his attempts to be brave. Summer carries determination and loneliness in equal measure. Jerry tries to soothe these tensions, but he does not know how to do it effectively. He feels responsible for emotional storms he did not create. This responsibility overwhelms him, but he cannot put it down because he cares too much. The most painful part of Jerry's attempts to hold the family together is that he often ends up feeling like the one blamed when things go wrong. If he tries too hard,
He is told he is smothering. If he tries too little, he is told he is absent. If he suggests a plan, it is dismissed as boring. If he expresses concern, it is interpreted as weakness. These reactions reinforce Jerry's belief that he is failing, even when his intentions are good. The more he fears failing, the more effort he pours into trying to fix things, and the more vulnerable he becomes to criticism. Jerry's fear becomes strongest when he senses emotional distance from Beth. He loves her with a loyalty that sometimes becomes painful. He remembers the early stages of their relationship when affection came easily and the world felt full of promise. But time exposes cracks. Beth's emotional intensity often turns inward, leaving Jerry unsure of how to reach her. He feels her disappointment even when she tries to hide it. He sees the way her eyes wander when they argue. He notices when she becomes quiet. These moments hit Jerry deeply because he interprets every silence as a step closer to losing her. Jerry tries to hold on to Beth gently, but fear makes his grip uncertain. He wants to understand her, but he is often too afraid to ask hard questions. He wants to support her dreams, but he feels insecure when those dreams do not include him directly. He wants to be her partner, but he often fears he is only her obligation. His attempts to hold the marriage together come from a place of love, but they sometimes become tangled with insecurity. He tries to reassure Beth, but he also tries to reassure himself that she will not leave. Jerry's fear of losing his children is different. It is softer, but just as potent. Morty and Summer are growing fast, experiencing things that Jerry cannot comprehend. He wants to protect them from danger, but he knows he cannot follow them into Rick's world. He wants to guide them, but he fears his advice does not matter compared to Rick's influence or Beth's intensity. Jerry tries to stay involved, but he feels the distance growing as his children become more self-reliant. This distance frightens him because he worries that one day they will look back and see him as irrelevant. Jerry's attempts to hold on to his children are tender but clumsy. He asks them about their day, even when they give short answers. He worries about them quietly, even when they brush him off. He offers comfort when he senses sadness, even if his timing is imperfect. These small acts come from a deep desire to stay connected, but Jerry's fear makes him misinterpret normal adolescent independence as emotional abandonment. Every time Morty forgets to say goodbye or Summer shrugs off a hug, Jerry feels a quiet sting he tries not to show. The most complicated part of Jerry's fear is his relationship with Rick. He does not try to hold Rick close, but he tries to hold the family together in spite of Rick. Jerry sees the damage Rick causes emotionally. He sees the way Rick's presence destabilizes the house. He sees the way Rick's dominance affects everyone's self-esteem. Jerry feels responsible for absorbing the emotional shockwaves that follow Rick's choices. He tries to counter the chaos with tenderness, but his tenderness feels small compared to Rick's overwhelming influence. This comparison fills Jerry with helplessness. Jerry sometimes imagines a version of the family where Rick is not present. In that fantasy, he sees warmth, simplicity, and emotional closeness. But Jerry is not angry at Rick for disrupting that ideal. He is afraid of the consequences of resenting him. Jerry does not want conflict. He does not want division. He wants togetherness. Even when Rick belittles him, Jerry tries to maintain dignity. Even when Rick overshadows him, Jerry tries to remain steady. He tries to hold his family together even when Rick pulls them in another direction entirely. Jerry's greatest fear is not chaos or danger. It is the slow erosion of connection. The idea that one day the people he loves will drift far enough that he cannot reach them anymore. This fear shapes every gentle attempt he makes to keep the family functioning. It makes him take on emotional labor silently. It makes him blame himself when conversations go wrong. It makes him apologize even when he is not at fault. He wants unity more than anything, and he is terrified that he is not strong enough to protect it. Despite the fear, Jerry's attempts to hold his family together reveal his greatest strength. He loves without conditions. He forgives without hesitation. He hopes without proof. These qualities make him vulnerable, but they also make him irreplaceable. His family may not always see it, but Jerry provides emotional warmth that no one else offers. He notices when someone is hurting. He cares even when others are distracted. He reaches out even when he is afraid. These actions are not dramatic, but they hold enormous weight. Jerry's tenderness is not weakness. It is a kind of emotional courage that requires constant effort. He tries to keep the family grounded, not through authority or intelligence, but through presence. He stays even when things hurt. He listens even when he feels dismissed. He comforts even when he feels invisible. Jerry does not hold the family together perfectly, but he holds them gently. And sometimes gentleness is what keeps things from breaking. At night, when Jerry lies in bed and thinks about the day, he often wonders whether he did enough. He wonders if he said the right things. He wonders if he connected with his children. He wonders if Beth still loves him. He wonders if the family is drifting further apart. These thoughts weigh on him, but the hope inside him keeps him trying. Jerry believes that connection is worth the effort, even when it feels one-sided. He believes that love is worth protecting, even when it trembles. And because of this belief, Jerry keeps holding his family together in the only way he knows. Not through strength, not through brilliance, not through control, but through tenderness, through quiet concern, through subtle affection, through small gestures that most people overlook. His fear does not diminish this effort, it fuels it. It shapes it into something gentle and persistent, something that might not change everything, but changes enough. Jerry's attempts may be fragile, but they are real. They reveal the depth of his love, the softness of his heart, and the quiet bravery required to keep showing up in a family that rarely makes space for tenderness. And even if the world around him moves unpredictably, Jerry continues to hold his family as best as he can, hoping each day that they will hold him back. Jerry Smith spends much of his life caught between two versions of himself, the person he truly is and the person he believes he has to become in order to survive the emotional landscape around him. These two versions of Jerry coexist in an uneasy truce. One is shaped by sincerity, tenderness, vulnerability, and hope. The other is constructed from fear, expectation, and the belief that he must change himself to be worthy of the people he loves. The conflict between these versions is rarely visible to anyone else. It unfolds quietly inside Jerry, shaping every choice he makes, every word he speaks, and every silence he holds. Jerry's true self is gentle. It is rooted in emotional sensitivity that allows him to feel deeply and love completely. This part of Jerry cares without hesitation. It wants connection more than pride. It wants honesty more than dominance. It wants peace more than victory. Jerry's true self is not ambitious in the traditional sense, but it holds a soft kind of ambition. The ambition to be understood, to be appreciated, to be cared for. Jerry wants to live a simple life filled with genuine affection and emotional security. That desire is not small or naive. It is human. However, the world around Jerry often signals that who he naturally is might not be enough. He receives this message through subtle glances, frustrated sighs, dismissive comments, and unspoken expectations. Jerry interprets these moments as proof that he must adjust himself constantly. He must be funnier, more confident, more assertive, more resilient, more competent. He must be less sensitive, less fearful, less uncertain. The gap between these demands and his natural tendencies creates a silent conflict inside him. Jerry tries to bridge this gap by creating a version of himself that he thinks others want. This version is not dishonest, it is simply modified. He adjusts his tone, changes his posture, and carefully calculates his responses. He tries to make himself seem stronger than he feels. He tries to appear more decisive than he truly is. He tries to catch up to the emotional speed of the people around him. When Beth is overwhelmed, he tries to appear steady. When Rick is intimidating, he tries to appear unfazed. When the children are growing, he tries to appear wise. Jerry tries to fill every emotional role he fears he is not suited for, hoping that effort alone will make up for his insecurity. This conflict becomes most intense whenever Jerry senses judgment. When Rick mocks him, Jerry feels the pressure to transform instantly into someone more confident. When Beth expresses disappointment, Jerry feels the pressure to evolve into someone more assertive. When Morty or Summer look at him with confusion, Jerry feels the pressure to become someone who understands everything without hesitation. These moments make Jerry feel like he must abandon his true self and become the version he imagines they want. But trying to transform himself quickly only creates more conflict inside him. Jerry does not realize that the person he thinks he should be is formed from assumptions rather than truth. He believes Beth wants someone stronger, yet she fell in love with his vulnerability. He believes the children want a father who knows everything, yet they value the comfort he gives even when he is uncertain. He believes Rick sees him as weak, yet even Rick has moments where Jerry's emotional sincerity reveals something Rick himself lacks. Jerry misunderstands what the world expects because he filters everything through fear, and fear twists perception. Jerry often tries to suppress his true self because he worries it will disappoint others. He hides his sensitivity during conflicts. He hides his fear during crises. He hides his insecurity when others are confident. But this hiding does not erase the feelings. It only pushes them deeper until they resurface as anxiety or self-doubt. When these emotions return, Jerry blames himself. He believes he failed to control them. He believes he failed to be the person others wanted. But the conflict never dissolves because it is rooted in the tension between authenticity and approval. There are moments when Jerry's true self breaks through despite his efforts to hide it. These are not moments of weakness, they are moments of honesty. When he admits he is scared, that is his true self trying to breathe. When he apologizes sincerely, that is his true self asking for connection. When he longs for closeness, that is his true self reaching outward. When he cries quietly at night, that is his true self revealing the depth of his emotional experience. These moments are rarely seen by others, but they shape Jerry profoundly. They remind him that the person he truly is cannot be erased, no matter how hard he tries to adapt. Jerry's attempts to become a different version of himself often fail because they are not sustainable. Pretending to be more confident drains him. Pretending to be less sensitive confuses him. Pretending to be unafraid isolates him. He can maintain these versions briefly, but the effort exhausts him. Once he collapses under the weight of pretending, he returns to his true self, feeling embarrassed or guilty for having tried so hard to be someone else. He interprets this return as failure instead of a natural realignment with his authentic identity. The conflict between who he is and who he tries to be also affects his relationship with Beth. Jerry wants to be the partner she deserves, but he is unsure what that means. Beth has complex emotions and an identity shaped by childhood pain and adult longing. Jerry wants to meet her where she is, but he fears that his presence sometimes makes her feel trapped. He tries to be strong for her even when he does not feel strong. He tries to be confident around her even when he is uncertain. He tries to hide his insecurities because he believes they burden her. But Beth does not need him to be perfect. She needs him to be present. Jerry does not always understand that presence matters more than performance. The conflict also shows up in his interactions with Morty and Summer. Jerry tries to be a wise and stable father, but he doubts his ability to guide them. When he sees them learning difficult lessons or facing emotional challenges, he tries to provide answers. But his attempts sometimes feel forced because he is trying to speak from a place of authority instead of authenticity. The children do not need Jerry to be flawless. They need him to be emotionally available. They need him to listen even when he does not understand. They need him to be sincere rather than impressive. Jerry struggles to trust that his true self is enough. Even with Rick, the conflict persists. Jerry tries not to let Rick intimidate him. He tries not to show fear. He tries not to reveal how much Rick's words affect him, but every attempt to appear unaffected feels unnatural. Jerry does not despise Rick. He fears him. He fears being judged by someone who sees through people instantly. Jerry tries to defend himself with confidence he cannot maintain. But the truth is that Rick is not looking for a rival. He is looking at a mirror of something he lost long ago. Jerry's vulnerability, though mocked, is something Rick secretly recognizes. Jerry cannot see this because he is too busy trying to hide the very traits that make him human in a way Rick is not. The conflict between Jerry's authentic self and his constructed self reaches its peak during moments of emotional pressure. When arguments erupt, Jerry tries to speak with authority, but his voice shakes. When crises occur, he tries to act brave, but his hands tremble. When silence grows between family members, he tries to fill it with humor, but it comes out awkwardly. These moments do not expose Jerry as weak. They expose the struggle he carries between intention and capability. He wants to be more, but he does not realize that being authentic is already enough. Jerry's internal conflict also reveals how deeply he values connection. If he did not care so much, he would not try so hard to change. His attempts to transform himself are misguided but sincere. They show that he values the happiness of others more than he values his own comfort. They show that he is willing to step outside his natural tendencies in order to give others what he believes they need. This effort, although painful, is an act of love. What Jerry does not yet understand is that connection requires authenticity more than perfection. His family does not need him to be fearless or brilliant or authoritative. They need him to be compassionate, honest, and emotionally present. These qualities come naturally to him. They are part of his true self. The more Jerry suppresses them, the more distant he becomes from the people he loves. The more he tries to construct a different identity, the more invisible his true identity becomes to himself. Jerry's greatest challenge is learning to trust that who he is can be enough. His sensitivity is not a flaw, it is a source of emotional wisdom. His vulnerability is not weakness, it is a doorway to connection. His insecurity is not a failing, it is a reflection of how deeply he cares. His gentleness is not inadequacy, it is a strength that his family needs more than they realize. Jerry must learn to let these qualities stand without trying to cover them with manufactured confidence. At night, Jerry often lies awake thinking about who he is. He replays the day in his mind. He analyzes every moment where he tried to be someone else. He wonders whether his family sees him clearly or if they see only the version he presents. He wonders if he is doing enough. He wonders if he is failing. He wonders if he will ever feel whole. These thoughts swirl quietly until they blur into exhaustion. But beneath them, there is a small truth he has not fully learned. The conflict inside him exists because he is trying to reconcile authenticity with fear, and the fact that he tries at all reveals something important. He cares enough to struggle. Jerry's true self may be fragile, but it is also consistent. It reappears no matter how many times fear tries to bury it. It guides him toward compassion. It helps him see pain in others. It allows him to apologize when he is wrong. It lets him love without pride. It makes him hopeful even when life disappoints him. If Jerry allows that self to breathe openly, he will discover that the world does not collapse when he stops pretending. Instead, he may find that the people around him understand him more clearly than he ever understood himself. There is a guilt that sits inside Jerry Smith that no one else seems to recognize. It is the guilt of someone who believes he must hold together pieces of a world he did not break. The guilt of someone who apologizes for storms he did not create. The guilt of someone who feels responsible for the sadness of others, even when he could not possibly have caused it. Jerry carries this guilt quietly, almost tenderly, as if it were a duty rather than a burden. He never says it aloud, but he constantly wonders whether he is the reason things feel off in his family, whether his presence somehow disrupts the balance of the people around him. Jerry's history with guilt comes from childhood experiences that shaped the way he interprets responsibility. He learned early that harmony in a household can feel fragile, and he came to believe that he must protect it, even if it means taking blame for things he never did. When people around him argued, he often felt responsible for restoring peace, even if the conflict had nothing to do with him. He learned to soothe, to soften, to apologize, and to adjust himself. This pattern followed him into adulthood, where guilt became a kind of emotional reflex. When something goes wrong, Jerry looks inward before looking outward. He wonders what he could have done differently. He wonders what part of him triggered the issue. He wonders how he can fix it. The guilt becomes heavier in his marriage. Jerry loves Beth with sincerity that reaches far deeper than he can articulate. But because Beth carries her own unresolved pain, her emotional turbulence often spills into the relationship. Jerry sees her sadness, her frustrations, her longing for a different life, and he quietly wonders if he is the cause. Even when Beth tells him that her struggles are rooted in her past, Jerry interprets her unhappiness through his own insecurities. He wonders if he failed to be the partner she needed, if he limited her without meaning to, if he stayed too soft when she needed strength. This guilt grows until it becomes a quiet ache beneath every conversation. When Beth is distant, Jerry feels responsible. When she's frustrated, Jerry feels responsible. When she is silent, Jerry feels responsible. Even when Beth reassures him, Jerry doubts his ability to help her feel fulfilled. The guilt also shows up in his relationship with Morty and Summer. Jerry wants to be a stable father figure, but he constantly questions whether he is succeeding. When Morty seems withdrawn, Jerry wonders if he did something wrong. When Summer seems frustrated, Jerry wonders if he missed an opportunity to support her. He fears that his children are growing into complicated emotional landscapes and that he is standing on the outside with no map. When they face danger in Rick's world, Jerry feels guilt for not being able to protect them. When they pull away emotionally, he feels guilt for not being able to reach them. When they struggle with their own identities, he feels guilt for not providing clearer guidance. Jerry takes their pain personally because he loves them deeply, and love, for Jerry, often turns into guilt when he feels powerless. Rick complicates this guilt further. Jerry feels inferior to Rick in almost every measurable way. Rick is confident, brilliant, assertive, and endlessly capable of changing the world around him. Jerry believes he should be more like that. He believes his shortcomings place more pressure on Beth and the kids. He believes that his inability to match Rick's presence makes the family view him as a burden. Even though Rick is the one who creates chaos, Jerry often internalizes responsibility for whatever emotional fallout occurs. If Rick upsets Beth, Jerry thinks he should have protected her better. If Rick confuses Morty, Jerry thinks he should have guided him more clearly. If Rick belittles Summer, Jerry thinks he should have spoken up. Jerry rarely blames Rick because blaming Rick feels impossible. Rick feels too large for blame. Jerry feels like the easier target, even to himself. Much of Jerry's guilt comes from his belief that he is not enough. Not enough for Beth, not enough for his children, not enough to stand evenly with Rick, not enough to make life feel steady. He interprets his insecurities as failures instead of as qualities that make him human. Jerry sees his softness as a flaw, his sensitivity as weakness, his hesitation as incompetence. He blames himself for lacking qualities he was never encouraged to develop. And because of this, every flaw he sees in himself grows into a quiet guilt he tries to carry silently. There are moments when this guilt is almost invisible to others. When Jerry sits quietly at the dinner table, he is not simply out of place. He is analyzing every word he said earlier in the day, wondering if any of it hurt someone. When he apologizes too quickly, he is not being dramatic. He is trying to preempt any emotional ripple he fears he caused. When he tries too hard to please everyone, he is not seeking attention. He is trying to avoid the guilt of disappointing someone. Jerry's actions often appear simple on the surface, but beneath them is a tangled web of emotional responsibility he feels compelled to carry. The guilt grows strongest during moments when the family experiences tension. When Beth and Rick argue, Jerry feels it. When Morty seems conflicted, Jerry feels it. When Summer seems upset, Jerry feels it. Jerry tries to mediate not because he believes he can fix everything, but because he believes he should try. He believes that if he does not step in, he is failing them. He believes that if he does not speak, he is allowing distance to grow. These beliefs cause him to step into emotional spaces he does not fully understand, hoping to help, but fearing he might make things worse. And when he cannot fix the situation, he blames himself again. Jerry's guilt also stems from the idea that he must justify his place in the family constantly. He sees how strong Beth is, how complex Rick is, how quickly Morty and Summer are growing. He wonders why they would need someone like him. This thought transforms into guilt when he imagines himself as a hindrance rather than a help. He apologizes not only for actions he took, but for existing in spaces where he fears he is unwanted. This guilt is quiet, but it shapes his daily life. It makes him cautious. It makes him hesitant. It makes him afraid to express his needs. Jerry constantly asks himself whether he deserves the affection he receives, and because he doubts the answer, he feels guilty accepting it. Yet, despite this guilt, Jerry continues to love openly. He continues to show up. He continues to try. His guilt does not harden him, it softens him further. He carries guilt because he cares. He carries guilt because he wants to be good. He carries guilt because he believes love should make life easier for the people he cares about. And when he fears he is failing to do that, he takes the blame onto himself without hesitation. Jerry does not realize that the guilt he carries often hides the truth that he is doing more for his family than he gives himself credit for. His presence stabilizes the emotional extremes in the house. His gentleness provides a counterbalance to Rick's harshness. His vulnerability encourages honesty in others. His fear becomes a mirror that reflects the courage of his children. His concern makes Beth feel grounded even when she does not express it. Jerry does more than he sees because he is too busy scanning for flaws. Jerry feels guilt for things far beyond his control. He feels guilt for Beth's past, even though he had no part in shaping it. He feels guilt for Rick's influence, even though he cannot change Rick. He feels guilt for Morty's trauma, even though he is powerless to prevent it. He feels guilt for Summer's struggles, even though he cannot shield her from life. His guilt grows because he believes love requires responsibility for every part of another person's emotional experience. This belief is noble, but it is also unrealistic. It places pressure on him that no one could bear. The most heartbreaking part of Jerry's guilt is how silently he carries it. He does not ask for reassurance. He does not confess his insecurities. He does not express the pain he feels when he watches others suffer. He simply absorbs it. His heart is not armored like Rick's. It is open and exposed. The world cuts into it easily. Yet he keeps that heart open because closing it feels wrong to him. He wants to love completely, even if it hurts. Jerry's guilt is not weakness. It is the shadow side of his empathy. It shows how deeply he wishes to be a source of comfort. It shows how much he wants to reduce the burdens of others. It shows how much he values connection. Jerry's guilt exists because he believes he has the power to heal people, even when he does not. The intention behind that belief is beautiful, even if the pressure it creates is heavy. There are times when Jerry imagines what life would feel like without this guilt. He imagines speaking freely without overthinking every word. He imagines relaxing without wondering if he should be doing more. He imagines loving Beth without fearing he is holding her back. He imagines fatherhood without constantly questioning his value. These fantasies feel distant, but they reveal his longing for peace. Deep inside, Jerry wants to feel whole. He wants to feel enough. He wants to feel that the love he gives is meaningful even if it is imperfect. Jerry may never fully escape the guilt he feels for things he cannot control, but he can learn slowly that responsibility does not require self-sacrifice. He can learn that his presence is valuable even when he cannot solve everything. He can learn that love does not demand guilt. It demands sincerity. It demands consistency. It demands emotional openness. Jerry excels in these areas without realizing it. At night, Jerry often lies awake thinking about the things that went wrong during the day. He replays the moments when someone looked upset. He wonders if he said something harmful. He wonders if he could have done more. He wonders if the people he loves are drifting because of his shortcomings. These thoughts weigh on him until exhaustion pulls him into sleep. But the truth beneath these thoughts is that Jerry cares too deeply to ever be the cause of emotional collapse in his family. His guilt hides his goodness, and that goodness is the quiet force that holds his heart together even when his mind tells him he is failing. Jerry's silent guilt may continue to shape him, but it does not diminish the love he gives. It does not erase the small comforts he offers. It does not reduce the warmth he brings into a home that often feels cold. His guilt comes from a place of love, and though it hurts, it also reveals the depth of his loyalty and the gentleness of his soul. Jerry loves enough to carry guilt that is not his to bear, and in that love, there is a quiet strength that deserves to be seen. Jerry Smith wakes up many mornings with a question that lingers quietly in his chest. What does my life mean if no one notices what I do? It is not a dramatic question. It does not come from a place of ego or pride. It comes from a gentle but persistent longing to feel purposeful. Jerry's search for meaning is not a quest for grand achievements. It is not driven by ambition or desire for recognition. It is a search rooted in the hope that his existence matters to the people he loves, and that his small contributions make a difference in a home filled with louder personalities and bigger stories. Jerry does not see himself as someone destined for greatness. He does not imagine changing the world. He does not imagine leaving behind a legacy of brilliance. Instead, he imagines smaller things. He imagines being someone his children trust when they are afraid. He imagines being someone Beth leans toward instead of pulling away from. He imagines being someone who helps maintain peace in a chaotic household. Jerry's meaning is built from moments rather than milestones. But the world he lives in does not always reward small moments. It rewards chaos, intelligence, boldness, and defiance. Jerry watches the people around him move through the world with a sense of identity and purpose, and he struggles to understand where his own meaning fits within that landscape. Jerry's life has always been shaped by the quiet tasks that others overlook. He is the one who makes sure the lights are off at night. He is the one who picks up the things left behind. He is the one who remembers birthdays or anniversaries or moments that feel small but matter emotionally. He is the one who tries to calm tensions during arguments. He is the one who notices when someone looks tired or unhappy. But because these gestures are subtle, they rarely get acknowledged. Jerry's meaning lives in silence, which is both beautiful and painful. The search for meaning becomes harder for Jerry because he sees how easily the family moves forward without him. When Rick takes Morty or Summer on an adventure, the house changes. The energy shifts, the noise grows, the experience becomes larger than anything Jerry can provide. He sees the excitement in their eyes, and though he does not envy the danger, he does envy the sense of purpose these adventures create. They come back with stories that reshape them. Jerry listens, proud and impressed, but also quietly aware that he had no part in those transformations. He feels like an observer in the growth of his own children. Jerry also struggles when he watches Beth pursuing meaning through her work and her identity. She is driven by a deep need to prove herself, to fulfill potential she believes she abandoned. Her meaning is tied to her competence and her autonomy. Jerry admires her deeply for that, but he also feels a distance because he does not relate to it. He wonders if his own search for meaning appears small to her. He wonders if she thinks he avoids responsibility because his ambitions do not resemble hers. He wonders if she sees his search as childish. These thoughts haunt him because he wants Beth to understand him, but he fears she never will. Rick creates another challenge for Jerry's search. Rick's view of meaning could not be more different. Rick sees meaning as irrelevant, a concept invented to make people feel important in a universe that does not care. Rick lives with the belief that nothing matters, which gives him freedom but also isolates him emotionally. Jerry watches Rick dismiss meaning and he feels conflicted. Part of him envies Rick's ability to detach, but a larger part of him desperately wants to believe that meaning does exist. Jerry cannot accept a life without meaning. His heart needs significance. His soul needs connection. But every time Rick mocks meaning, Jerry wonders if his search is foolish. Despite these challenges, Jerry continues his search quietly. He does not give up because meaning is not something he can abandon. It is something his heart seeks naturally. Jerry tries to build meaning through relationships. He tries to make people feel cared for. He tries to offer comfort. He tries to be consistent. He tries to be gentle. These qualities do not make him extraordinary in the eyes of the world, but they shape the emotional climate of the house. Jerry's meaning grows through the invisible threads of kindness that he places between himself and others. Jerry finds meaning in the moments when someone surprises him with gratitude. These moments are rare, but they warm him deeply. When Morty thanks him sincerely, Jerry feels a glow inside that lasts for hours. When Summer smiles at him without sarcasm, Jerry treasures it quietly. When Beth gives him a small sign of affection, Jerry holds it close as proof that he is not meaningless in her eyes. These gestures create meaning that Jerry clings to whenever he feels invisible. Jerry also finds meaning in the private moments when he realizes he has changed something quietly. Maybe he helps Morty understand a feeling that Rick would have dismissed. Maybe he supports Summer during a moment when she felt misunderstood. Maybe he comforts Beth in a way that reminds her she is loved. Maybe he steps back from an argument to prevent unnecessary pain. These moments are not dramatic. They do not change the universe, but they change the people inside Jerry's small world. And for Jerry, that is enough. However, Jerry's search for meaning often becomes tangled with self-doubt. When something goes wrong, he wonders if his actions were pointless. When he feels excluded, he wonders if he is incapable of creating meaning. When he sees the family bonding without him, he wonders if his efforts matter at all. The fear of being irrelevant makes him question whether the meaning he finds is real or imagined. Jerry wants proof that he matters, but life rarely offers proof. It offers hints. It offers
memories. It offers whispers. Jerry struggles to hear these whispers through the noise of his insecurity. Jerry's search becomes even more complex when he compares himself to the people around him. Rick finds meaning in intellect, which Jerry does not possess. Beth finds meaning in autonomy, which Jerry struggles to assert. Morty and Summer find meaning in growth and transformation, which Jerry feels excluded from. Jerry's meaning must come from something different, something smaller, something quieter, something that does not draw attention but still matters deeply. Jerry does not realize that meaning often grows in the quiet spaces of life. It grows when someone feels safe because of him. It grows when someone feels understood because of him. It grows when someone smiles because of his kindness. These small acts of care accumulate over time, slowly shaping the identity of a family. Jerry is not the architect of adventure. He is the caretaker of emotion. He is the person who provides warmth in a house that can feel cold. He is the softness that balances the sharpness of others. His meaning is woven into the emotional stability of the home, not into its chaos. Jerry's search for meaning also reveals his resilience. Even when he feels discouraged, he continues to try. Even when he feels invisible, he continues to give. Even when he feels small, he continues to hope. Jerry does not abandon his search because it is not about success. It is about connection. It is about love. It is about the belief that his presence matters even when he cannot see the impact immediately. There are nights when Jerry sits quietly in the living room after everyone has gone to bed. He looks around the house and wonders what his place is in it. He wonders whether his efforts hold any weight. He wonders if his kindness has softened anyone's day. He wonders if his fear ever protected someone. He wonders if his vulnerability ever made someone feel less alone. These questions do not always have answers, but they guide Jerry toward a deeper truth. Meaning is not something handed to him. It is something he creates through the way he chooses to live. Jerry's greatest source of meaning comes from his heart, a heart that bruises easily but heals quickly, a heart that doubts itself but continues to love, a heart that fears being forgotten but continues to reach outward, a heart that sees meaning in the simple act of caring for someone. Jerry may never fully understand the impact he has on the people around him, but that impact exists. It lives in the small comforts he provides. It lives in the gentle way he listens. It lives in the soft hope he brings to a family that often forgets softness. Jerry's search for meaning may always feel incomplete, but that incompleteness is what makes it meaningful. He is not trying to build a legacy, he is trying to build connection, and connection is not measured in achievements, it is measured in moments of sincerity. Jerry's life is filled with these moments, even if he does not notice them. And when Jerry finally lies down at night, after a day of quiet efforts and unnoticed kindness, he often thinks he did nothing remarkable. But the truth is that his small acts of love ripple through the home in ways he cannot see. Jerry's meaning is not diminished by the world overlooking him. It grows because he keeps searching even when the world is loud, chaotic, and indifferent. It grows because he loves without needing applause. It grows because he tries every day to make life softer for the people he loves. This quiet search for meaning is not a weakness. It is Jerry's quiet strength. It is the thread that connects him to the world. And even if he feels overlooked, his meaning is real, living gently in every corner of the home he works so hard to hold together. There is a quiet place inside Jerry Smith that almost no one ever sees, a place that holds a small, trembling hope that refuses to die, even when life gives him endless reasons to let it go. This hope is not loud or confident. It does not stand tall. It does not fight with force. It simply holds on. It holds on through heartbreak, through disappointment, through rejection, through moments where Jerry feels he has failed everyone, including himself. This soft hope lives at the core of who he is, shaping the way he moves through a world that often treats him as insignificant. Jerry does not know exactly where this hope comes from. It does not come from accomplishment, because Jerry rarely feels accomplished. It does not come from confidence, because Jerry doubts himself almost every day. It does not come from admiration, because Jerry rarely feels admired. This hope seems to exist naturally, born from the same sensitivity that makes Jerry feel everything so deeply. His heart bruises easily, but it also heals in its own quiet way. The same vulnerability that causes him pain also allows him to hope again. Jerry's hope shows itself in small decisions, choosing to get out of bed even on days when he feels invisible, choosing to greet his family warmly even when they seem distracted, choosing to forgive without being asked, choosing to keep trying even after being dismissed, choosing to love Beth despite the complexity of their marriage, choosing to support his children even when he fears they do not need him anymore. These choices seem simple, but each one is a form of hope. Jerry chooses them again and again because something inside him whispers that things can get better. That connection is possible. That love
is worth the effort. This soft hope is strongest at the moments when Jerry feels most uncertain. When he sees Beth slipping into her own insecurities, Jerry hopes he can reach her with kindness. When he sees Morty struggling with fear or confusion, Jerry hopes he can guide him gently. When he sees Summer hiding her worries behind confidence, Jerry hopes he can remind her she is not alone. Even when Rick is cruel or dismissive, Jerry hopes that one day Rick might see value in him, or at least respect the love Jerry gives to the family. Jerry hopes for things he cannot predict or control, and though this hope often hurts him, it also gives him strength. The world Jerry lives in often tries to extinguish hope. Rick mocks optimism. Beth avoids vulnerability. Life at home is full of tension that shifts like wind. The universe is chaotic. Danger appears without warning. Joy is unpredictable. Stability rarely lasts. In this environment, hope seems almost foolish, but Jerry's hope is not naive. It is persistent. It is the only form of strength he knows how to hold. He holds it gently, protecting it from the cynicism around him. This hope keeps him moving even when everything feels overwhelming. Jerry's hope also comes from his ability to see possibility in moments others ignore. When Beth smiles at him unexpectedly, he sees potential for closeness. When Morty hugs him without hesitation, he sees a future where he still matters. When Summer rolls her eyes but laughs at one of his jokes, he sees connection. These moments are not grand, but they are enough to keep Jerry believing that love can survive the difficulties they face. Jerry's hope grows from these tiny sparks, each one lighting a small part of his emotional landscape. There are times when Jerry's hope feels almost too fragile to survive, moments when Beth looks at him with disappointment, moments when Rick tells him he contributes nothing, moments when his children seem impatient or uninterested, moments when Jerry feels replaced by people who seem more capable, more adventurous, more interesting. During these times, Jerry's hope trembles. It flickers like a candle in a storm. He wonders whether it would be easier to let it go, to accept that he is not needed, to accept that he has no real place, to accept that life has already decided his worth. These are the most painful moments for Jerry, when hope feels like both a comfort and a curse. Yet, even in those moments, Jerry's hope does not disappear. It grows quieter, but it stays. It stays because Jerry has always survived emotional storms by believing in better days. It stays because he cannot ignore the small signs of love that still appear. It stays because giving up feels wrong to him. Jerry's heart does not know how to stop hoping, even when his mind tries to convince him that it is pointless. This hope is the deepest part of him, the part that remains steady even when everything else trembles. Jerry's soft hope becomes most visible when he imagines the future. He imagines a home where Beth feels at peace and their connection feels natural again. He imagines a family dinner where laughter fills the room without tension beneath it. He imagines watching Morty and Summer grow into themselves while still seeking his presence for comfort. He imagines a version of Rick who occasionally shows kindness. Jerry does not imagine dramatic happiness. He imagines subtle peace. He imagines consistency. He imagines a future where love is steady. These dreams may be simple, but they reveal the hope he carries silently inside him. Jerry also hopes for something personal, something he rarely acknowledges even to himself. He hopes that one day he will feel enough. Enough for Beth, enough for his children, enough for himself. He hopes that one day he will look in the mirror and see someone who deserves love instead of someone who constantly fears losing it. He hopes he can grow into a version of himself that others rely on not out of obligation, but because he brings comfort and kindness into their lives. Jerry's hope is not only directed outward, it is also directed inward. He hopes for his own healing, even if he does not know how to reach it yet. The soft hope, Jerry Keeps Alive also reveals something profound about his character. It shows that he has not allowed pain to turn him bitter. Many people who experience constant ridicule, emotional neglect, or insecurity shut down emotionally. They protect themselves by hardening their hearts. Jerry has never done this. His heart remains open, vulnerable, and willing. He continues to love even after being hurt. He continues to try even after failing. He continues to hope even after disappointment. This resilience is not based on strength in the traditional sense. It is based on his refusal to abandon the part of himself that wants connection. Jerry's hope also shapes the way he handles conflict. He rarely escalates arguments because he hopes to preserve peace. He rarely pushes his opinions too aggressively because he hopes not to damage relationships. He rarely withdraws completely because he hopes things can improve. This hope guides him through difficult conversations. Even when he is misunderstood or dismissed, he remains open to dialogue. He waits for the moment when the tension breaks and connection becomes possible again. Jerry believes in reconciliation, sometimes more strongly than the people who hurt him. Jerry's hope is quiet, but it influences the emotional environment of the home. It softens the edges of conflict. It encourages others to calm down. It offers emotional stability that no one asks for, but everyone benefits from. When Rick storms through the house angrily, Jerry's gentle presence keeps things from escalating further. When Beth spirals into self-doubt, Jerry's hope for her creates a space where she can breathe. When Morty feels overwhelmed, Jerry's belief in him becomes a grounding force. When Summer feels misunderstood, Jerry's hope for her confidence provides reassurance. Jerry does not see the impact of his hope because he is too busy analyzing his perceived failures. But the truth is that his hope makes the house feel more human. Without Jerry, the home would be filled with intensity, sharpness, and unresolved emotions. Jerry provides the softness that balances everything. His hope is not foolish, it is essential. At night, when Jerry lies in bed after another day that felt confusing or overwhelming, he often feels the weight of his insecurities pressing against him. But somewhere beneath the noise of doubt, a small voice tells him that tomorrow might be different. That tomorrow he might manage a better conversation with Beth. That tomorrow he might connect more with the kids. That tomorrow he might feel a little less invisible. This whispered hope carries him into sleep, even on the nights when his heart aches intensely. Jerry's soft hope is his most defining quality. It is what keeps him from collapsing beneath fear. It is what drives him to love despite uncertainty. It is what helps him survive the emotional storms around him. It is what makes him unique in a family that often forgets how to hope at all. Jerry may never say it aloud, but hope is his language. He speaks it through every quiet action, every gentle attempt, every moment of persistence. And even if the world around him tells him he should give up, even if people overlook him, even if life feels too heavy, Jerry continues to hope. Not because he is naive, but because hope is the light he carries inside himself. A light that may flicker, but never goes out. A light that guides him toward connection, warmth, and love. A light that protects the parts of him that would otherwise be swallowed by fear. Jerry's hope is soft, but it is also enduring. It survives disappointment. It survives loneliness. It survives self-doubt. It survives the harshness of a universe that often feels indifferent. And because it survives, Jerry survives with it. He grows with it. He learns with it. He lives with it. This is the fragile hope of Jerry Smith. A hope that trembles but persists. A hope that hurts but heals. A hope that shines quietly in the background of a chaotic world. A hope that reminds him, even in his darkest moments, that he still believes in love.